My internal alarm just kind of went off. I think as a female, I was like, there's something kind of weird about that guy. So he came up to me and I immediately started trying to pack up my stuff, and because I just wanted to get away. I feel like if a woman's backing away from you, most men would kind of take that as a cue. Mm-hmm. You don't keep approaching closer and closer. He wanted to just fill in the gap. So it didn't matter if I was stepping back from him, he was coming closer. And he came up to me, immediately gets right in my space. And so I start being really loud and saying no. I was like, oh my gosh, if I'm alone, I'm gonna be a victim out here. I was all kind of freaked out at that point.
All right, welcome back, everyone. We're going to jump right in today. A little bit of a serious topic because Nevaeh just returned home from a 4 or 5 day trip.
4-day trip, yeah.
4-day trip. It was her first kind of adult solo. That wasn't a vacation. It was more of a work trip for you. But you traveled down to Dallas, Texas on your own, and we had an interesting encounter that happened along the way that we thought would be worth just highlighting and discussing here on the podcast. So, what took place?
What took place? All right, so I flew from Spokane International Airport. I made it through the airport and everything just fine. And I was like, okay, this is going smoothly. This is awesome. I'm doing all right. We landed in Dallas, got my bag and everything. I was waiting for my friend to come pick me up. And so I was kind of hanging out by the exit doors, just by baggage claim and everything. And I stopped to sit down and film something. And I kind of noticed out of my peripheral vision that there was a guy making laps around the exit doors and around baggage claim and everything. And just kind of it wasn't anything that alarming that he was doing, but my internal alarm just kind of went off. I think as a female, I was like, there's something kind of weird about that guy. And I felt like he was kind of looking at me and just walking around and pacing oddly. And I noticed he didn't have any luggage. Mm-hmm. So I was like, why are you at the baggage claim area for 45 minutes or whatever, or in the airport at all, and you don't look like you're traveling and you're alone? And so I kind of had my eye on him, but I was finishing up my filming. And then when I was done, I noticed him start to walk over, and that didn't really surprise me because I knew there was something kind of off about him, which thinking back, I probably should have left just when I noticed there was a dude walking around that I thought was weird. Yep. So he came up to me and I immediately started trying to pack up my stuff, and because I just wanted to get away. And he had a really heavy Middle Eastern accent. He clearly wasn't from here. He was probably 45, kind of an older dude, had the look, kind of creepy. And he walked up to me and he was like, hi, what's your name? What are you doing here? And I was like, I didn't tell him anything about myself. I was trying to get away. And I was like, just traveling. And I told him, I was like, layover. Friend's coming to pick me up. I was just like, leave me alone. And he started saying, oh, okay, where are you going? Where are you going? And I was ignoring him. And then he was like, he saw my phone. I was filming. He's like, are you a streamer? And I was like, no. And I was just trying not to answer many of his questions and get away. And I noticed one of the airport security, it was a woman, and she noticed, and she was kind of looking at me and she was making eyes at me. I think she wanted to jump in, but she didn't. Yeah. But she noticed because of how the interaction was going and how uncomfortable I looked. And then he finally walked away. So I was like, okay, good. He's gone, everything. I made eyes with the security girl. That was weird. And so I started packing everything up. I had my suitcase. I was waiting for my friend to go. My friend to come. I was sitting by the doors. And then he came back up to me after he disappeared for probably 5 minutes. He came back up to me and then he started kind of getting in my space a little bit. And he's like, I want your phone number. And I was like, no, and started kind of walking away. And then he was pretty insistent about it. And I was like, no. And then he's just like, I'm sorry. And walked away. And then I didn't see him again.
What do you mean he got in your space?
He was just as I was backing up, I feel like if a woman's backing away from you, most men would kind of take that as a cue. Mm-hmm. You don't keep approaching closer and closer. He wanted to just fill in the gap. So it didn't matter if I was stepping back from him, he was coming closer. So that was alarming. And then my friend ended up showing up. I didn't see the guy. The female security girl, she kind of walked me out the doors while I was waiting for her. And so I get in the car with my friend. Everything's fine. We show up I was going to a conference.
Okay, but let's stop for a second. So you called us to tell us that you had landed in Dallas.
Yeah.
And then told me about this interaction. And the very first thing I wrote you back was, that's a trafficker.
A trafficker, yeah.
Because it just like instantly was like, that's a scout. And so scouts will wander around airports or bus stations or train stations looking for women or young girls that are traveling alone, that look like they could be victimized or that are maybe naive. And then they will approach them. They will try to find out who they are, where they're going. And oftentimes they will have someone, like at an airport, they will have someone in a car outside, like they're there to pick someone up. And so my concern when he walked away from you was that he alerted the guy outside, like female, brown curly hair, black dress, jean jacket. And like, you know, they will write that and then they will find the Uber or the taxi or wherever car you get in and they will follow your car. So I said, that guy's going to try to follow you. Make sure they're not following you.
Yeah.
And it's the movie Taken.
Yeah. So
It's literally the scene from Taken.
Yeah, well, and the reason that that was depicted in the movie is because it actually happens. They use airport scouts. Usually they don't use 45-year-old creepy men. They'll use young, attractive men because so many young girls will fall for that when they're traveling. All of a sudden, a 19-year-old or a 20-year-old really attractive guy walks up and wants your phone number. We're going to party later. And girls, being naive, thinking this guy's my age, will give them the phone number and then they will just text whatever car's outside, got on this Uber, whatever license plate or this is what the girl looks like, and they will follow and they will find out where the girls are staying.
Okay, so kind of a worst case scenario for us as parents, especially me as a father. This is Nevaeh's first real opportunity as a legal adult to travel, have some freedom. We were excited. We were enthusiastic about you having this opportunity. I didn't really have all that much to say to you before leaving. I guess mom kind of briefed you on like things to watch for, right? I guess I said my piece as well, but I tried not to be too heavy-handed about it because I wanted you to have fun.
Yeah.
For this to be the first thing to happen to you upon landing out of state and then hearing about it was so frustrating. And I'm assuming at this point that just in hearing this initial story that people are going to be slightly dismissive and be like, oh, the overprotective homeschooled 18-year-old girl from Idaho who lives in a bubble was approached by a man for the first time and became a little intimidated and scared.
Yeah.
There is more to this story.
There's more to it.
Let's
Because that's kind of how I was when I texted mom. I was like, oh, this creepy guy came up to me. And I was kind of like, just like, oh, that's annoying.
It's very easy to be dismissive.
And I was like, be careful they don't follow you. And you're like, they didn't follow.
Yeah, I was like, I'm fine. I went with my friend. I didn't see the guy who walked away. I was like, he's just some like creepy old guy. Yeah. I was dismissive about it because I didn't want to freak myself out or anything. I was traveling alone.
Nobody wants to think worst case scenario.
And I was like, I am a young girl alone. It's possible creepy guys come up to me. I was like, it's fine. He didn't follow me or anything like that. I didn't want to take an Uber from the airport because I did hear stories about that airport specifically. They have fake Ubers where guys, they either rob you or, like do terrible things to you, basically telling you that they're your Uber. So I waited for my friend to pick me up. I felt way more comfortable that way. I was going to a conference and there was like the kickoff party. So it was at night. It was at the conference center. It's kind of like
same day.
Yeah, same day. It was we showed up kind of late, so it was probably 2 hours later. It was not that much later. But there was this big kickoff party, a bunch of people. I was with a group of people, and then I stepped away for a second, and I was kind of standing by myself. And then all of a sudden, this guy, and I don't know if it was the same guy, but same accent, looked just like him, and he didn't have, everyone at the conference has a badge, like a lanyard.
Lanyard, yes.
And a bracelet that tells you paid for a ticket. You can't go to the conference without having these things. It's your identification at the conference. He didn't have either. So I don't think he was attending the conference, and that party was specifically for that. And he came up to me, immediately gets right in my space, like worse than at the airport. And it's like, I want your phone number. I want your phone number. And so I start being really loud and saying like, no, and making sure that people heard and trying to walk away from him. And he's following me. And then he started asking, he's like, what are you doing here at the conference? What are you doing? Are you staying here? And I just went to kind of like catch him off guard. I was like, I work for the conference. I'm not staying here. 20 minutes away, and started like walking away. And another woman there, she looked like she was a little older. She's somebody's manager or something. She went over and she physically grabbed me and moved me and like told the guy to back away because she noticed how pushy he was being and how uncomfortable I looked. And then she stayed with me for probably an hour. And me and her were just talking and she was like making sure that the guy wasn't around. And I told some people what he looked like and everything, but I just thought it was so weird he didn't have the bracelet or the identification lanyard.
And you can't say definitively, but you suspect this, is it possible that this was the same guy?
I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
But even if it wasn't the same guy, like clearly they're together, same accent, same look.
Highly coincidental.
2 hours later. So then I'm very confident that they did, in fact, contact someone from a car and follow you guys.
He just wasn't with the conference because the bracelets, you put them on right when you get there and you check into the conference and they don't come off. You have to cut them off after the conference is done. You can't take them off. And he didn't have one. So I was like, you're not part of this event. Why are you here? And I didn't see him the rest of the time. So he was just there specifically that night, and I didn't see him talk to anyone else. He came directly up to me when I was alone, and then he left. Right. No one else saw him.
Yeah. Like, clearly you were followed, and that's so creepy because that's a lot of trouble to go to. Yeah. To scout someone at an airport, follow their car, which, I mean, whether or not it was the same guy, it was still the same group. And, like, clearly they had people outside of the airport that are following people that he says to follow. And that is so, so dangerous.
It is.
Because if at any point you were alone or they had any opportunity, like obviously they had intentions.
So how are you feeling at this point that night after being contacted a second time by somebody that you suspect is possibly being the same guy from the airport, if not maybe an associate of his? How are you feeling?
That night I was a little freaked out because, I mean, that was the first night of the trip and everything. And it was already kind of weird being alone because I've never done anything like that before.
Right.
And that kind of discouraged me of like, I was like, oh my gosh, if I'm alone, I'm going to be a victim out here. I was like all kind of freaked out at that point. And luckily I was staying with a couple other girls. So I wasn't alone in the hotel, which that would have worried me a lot more. Mm-hmm. But I made sure to stay around people the rest of the night. And I told everyone else about this guy and what he looked like. So they were aware of him and could point him out. And
how many people are looking out for you that night after you kind of spread the word?
I told about 10 people. And they were around me the whole time. Mm-hmm. And there was security and stuff there. And I think that one woman who stepped in, she might have told them. But there were definitely quite a few people that were aware of him and making sure to look out for him. But I think he disappeared after that. I think he left.
He probably left when he figured like, oh, she's surrounded by people. We're not going to get her now.
Yeah. Okay. So again, we can't say anything definitively, but needless to say, it's a very bizarre circumstance. And we're not saying this or putting this out there like, oh, Nevaeh was targeted and oh my goodness, she's looking for attention. Not what this is about whatsoever. But it is something that does occur and it's so easy to become dismissive of. I think getting a firsthand account of somebody's experience, although anecdotal, I think it's so important to highlight and be aware of the fact that these things do happen. We have a lot of young people out there who are just venturing out to the world for the first time. There is so much to be aware of. I'm proud of you for being hyper aware, vigilant, and doing the right thing and letting the people around you know what was going on. Very smart.
Sometimes people they can become victims or they can get themselves into bad situations because they're trying to be polite.
Yeah.
And a lot of times being polite can get you into trouble, like by making a scene and being like, no, get away from me. And you become a difficult victim. Yeah. A lot of times like that can cause a perpetrator to walk away. But a lot of times young girls just become intimidated and they may give out information that they don't even mean to give out. Mm-hmm. Or they may do things just to be polite.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so easy to inadvertently expose yourself some vital information that they can operate with. What I tell you upon hearing the story when you came back last night, what was the advice I told you for anybody, but a male in particular, coming up asking you, peppering you with questions? You have zero obligation
don't
to respond whatsoever. You're better off just
Yeah.
being rude.
Yeah.
Straight up being rude.
And that was like as uncomfortable as I felt, and as much as I wanted to be like, get away from me, that was really hard, oddly, because I was like, my alarm started going off and I started to freak out a little bit, that it was kind of hard to not answer questions and stuff, just to kind of, I was trying to like throw him off because I felt like it was kind of weird. So I was kind of I was trying to lie and stuff and be like, I'm staying far away. But I was answering questions just because I was like so intimidated.
And it would have been better to be like, get away from me, all and make a big scene.
Yeah, I did.
I don't know you. You're a creep, because then that would have caught people's attention and that would cause someone to flee.
I did better at like that night, which is why that girl came over, because I started yelling no really loudly, like really loud. Yeah. And so she came immediately over. She like marched over there like she knew what was going on.
We want to take a quick moment to thank My Patriot Supply for sponsoring today's episode. As a family and as proud Americans, we're very serious about being as prepared as we possibly can be, and that means making sure that our family has a healthy food supply, and for that, we've relied heavily upon My Patriot Supply.
If you've been considering a long-term food supply for your family, a great place to start is with a mega 3-month emergency food kit. It comes jam-packed with 33 varieties of filling and delicious foods, and I highly recommend one for every member of your family.
Yeah, not only does that include creamy chicken flavored rice, old-fashioned Italian spaghetti, and savory chicken broccoli soup, but you'll also get a bonus protein kit with diced beef, flavored chicken chunks, and 3 varieties of beans plus 9 different fruits, vegetables, and snacks.
Plus, each emergency food kit provides a whopping 2,500 calories a day and has a shelf life of 25 years.
Yeah, as a father, I can't imagine anything worse than not being able to feed our family in an emergency. Give yourself the gift of reassurance in knowing that you have the ability to provide not only for yourself, but also for your loved ones with the help of My Patriot Supply.
Just go to preparewithnwos.com right now to save $300 on your mega 3-month emergency food kit. It ships fast and free. So go to preparewithnwos.com to save $300 on your kit. That's preparewithnwos.com.
I'm so glad that you had,
2 females, actually, one at the airport and one at the hotel that stepped in.
but just some of the people that we know too that were, looking out for her,
Yeah.
knowing full well that you just turned 18 and this was your first outing by yourself, crossing the country, which is a big deal for us as a family, for you as an individual. To most people, no biggie. But we live in a very isolated situation here.
Right.
So,
I was glad that our manager was over there to, or one of the agents that we work with was over there to really watch you, and she was updating me.
Yeah, she was. Every time I wasn't with her, she'd probably text me every hour. She's like, "Are you good? Are you safe? What are you doing?" And I tell her, and she'd be like, "Okay, cool. If you need anything, call me," which was really nice.
it's just so unfortunate that you can't.
I know.
I play out so many
the
hypotheticals.
very first trip.
Yeah,
are
I
you
play out
kidding?
so many hypotheticals in my brain, and I've been trying to do a better job of setting that aside and allowing you to, pounce and have these experiences, because you should have that ability. You should have that opportunity. So it's so unfortunate that immediately upon landing in
Literally
Texas, you get off the plane and you were confronted with this situation, putting you to the
15
test.
minutes into being there.
Yeah, my
it's-
very first interaction with you since leaving our house was this, and I instantly knew what it was.
You're like, "Oh, did you make it?" I was like, "Yeah." And guess what happened?
And I was like, "That's a trafficker." And you were kind of dismissive, he didn't follow us, and he clearly did.
Yeah,
you didn't
think
even
he
know
would.
because it's somebody else in a car, and it's an airport, and cars are just traveling. So it's really difficult to even know if you're being followed by. They have scouts in the airport, and then they have people that follow outside of the airport.
But I didn't want to be dramatic or anything. I didn't want to be like, "Oh my gosh, there's gonna be guys following me." I was like, it was just some old creepy dude. It happens sometimes. Unfortunately, as a young girl, I was like, I'm fine.
And entirely possible, but
No, but not given what happened 2
given
hours
the
later.
circumstance, I think a plausible conclusion is to say that this was some kind of a coordinated effort, and digging into it a little further. You have some stats and statistics that you pulled up here.
Well, I kind of already knew, because her going to Dallas was already a concern, because Texas is the second highest,
most prolific.
Human trafficking, as far as human trafficking. So California is number 1. And a lot of it is because of their open border policies and their immigration policies, because that is a lot of the human trafficking that's pouring over the borders. And
You say boulders?
Yeah. And the traffickers are coming from other places and taking advantage of low-income people or foster kids or runaways or just girls that they can that they can talk into it. And there was a girl kidnapped from Dallas at a Mavericks game, 15-year-old girl. She was there with her father.
You heard about this while you were down there, correct?
Yeah, it happened a couple years ago, but they just did an interview with her. Now, a couple years later, talking about her experience. So, we went to the Dallas Mavericks Center last year, right?
Their training facility.
Practice facility.
Yeah.
But it's their big. They were in the middle of a game. Second quarter, she gets up to go to the bathroom.
How old is this girl?
15.
Yeah.
She gets approached by a younger guy, and she's talking to him, probably flirting, whatever. He somehow convinces her to walk around the outside of the arena with him, and that's the last that they get of her.
She never came back from the bathroom, and she was there with her dad.
Yeah, at halftime, the dad's like, "Where is she?" and starts looking for her. They get security, they lock down the place, everything, and they never find her. And she was pulled into a vehicle.
It was a young guy, so she trusts him. And I think she was vaping by the bathrooms or something. He came up to her, he's like, "Oh, you smoke?" I have weed and stuff in my car. It was trying to just make her think he wanted to hang out. She was like, "Oh, cool." So she walked out with him, and she didn't know there were 3 other guys with him. And they all got her, and they attacked her in the car. They took her, and I think they found her 10 days later, because the family hired a private investigator that found videos they were making of her.
Yeah, because the police weren't helping because they said she was a runaway.
But they were selling videos of what they were doing to her in Oklahoma. So they pinpointed where she was, and she was in Oklahoma with them.
Yeah, in Oklahoma, being completely abused and everything, and like filmed, and it was put on the internet and all of this. They find her 11 days later. Luckily, the family hired a private investigator, which is who found her. And she was rescued. But yeah, she just thought she was flirting with some young guy.
Horrible stuff.
And gets pulled into a car. So like that happened in Dallas. And then there's been several women that have been abducted. There was a girl that got off a school bus and she was taken from her home by, I think, 6 Venezuelan people. And
is this the story you told me about
yeah,
the
and they
girl?
were able to find her because of, I think, the Ring camera captured it, and they were able to intercept the car.
So what's the background on that? She like gets home from school,
just got
correct?
off the bus. Yeah, she was getting off the bus, and basically there was scouters or
Scouts.
traffickers that were following a high school bus looking for a girl to get off alone. Followed her in their car. She didn't realize she was being followed, obviously. Followed her to her home, watched her walk in. They kicked in her door and drug her out of the house, shoved her in the car. There were 6 men.
And she was recovered.
She was recovered, luckily,
relatively
before
quickly.
anything happened. Yeah, like within 15 minutes or something of her being abducted.
But she was bound and gagged in the trunk of a vehicle.
Yeah, I mean,
correct?
obviously they were going to.
Yeah, do the same types of things.
Yeah, horrible. Or just kill her. And there was another girl taken off of a path. Like she was jogging and they found her in the woods. I mean, like all these girls are young. They're all like 14, 15 years old. And so Texas is having a big problem with this right now, as is California. So like when you're talking about like traveling to LA and stuff, I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, let's go to the number one.
But there's no spot that makes you immune from any of this stuff. I mean, especially with the online world now, you have people who are targeting these young, I mean, primarily females, let's be real about it. These young females online, a lot of times are troubled. They are, they have history of being a runaway. They will reach out to them, not knowing who they're talking to. And how often have we seen it even here in our area to where these coordinated efforts are made to lure these kids virtually to a location.
Right. Dating apps are another big one.
I'm going to buy you a bus ticket, show up here, come here. I'll give you everything it is you want. We'll party, we'll have fun. And then they are lost.
Yeah, a lot of promises. A lot of foster kids, male and female, are tempted away through video games. People that make friends with them pretending to be their age.
These stupid apps geared toward kids.
Yep, a lot of stuff like that. And a lot of dating apps, Tinder and things like that. They will get a lot of people that way. They'll just start to learn their backstory, earn their trust. We're in a romantic relationship. A lot of it's like we're in a romantic relationship. They promise them housing, drugs, whatever it is that these kids are into. And then when they get to the location, it's actually like a brothel or something like that. And then these kids are drugged. They are threatened. They threaten their families, and that is how it happens. And
it's just amazing to me that this is a thing. It is a thing. We can't just look at like these fictitious movies like Taken and be like, oh, it's just they are. No, these things happen, and it's so important to be aware of that, especially for young women in particular out there. Like you're vulnerable as a woman functioning in our society. I'm sorry, it's just a plain truth.
Well, yeah, I made all of our kids watch Taken. And it's kind of a meme of moms making their teenage daughters watch the movie Taken because they're like, oh my gosh, that's so unlikely. It's not unlikely.
It's not a scare tactic. It's good to be aware.
And as soon as the same situation happened to you, you were definitely more aware of like, hey, this feels familiar from the movie. And so I think it's a super important movie.
Let's dispel let me present a hypothetical to you. So you get a 20-year-old male who comes walking up to you at any
super good looking male.
Any given location. What's your degree? Again, I'm looking at this through the lens of a 41-year-old man. Mm-hmm. What is it that you are, how do you assess those situations? Are you automatically weary and skeptical off the bat? Are you open to being rizzed up, as we learned in the last episode here on the podcast?
I feel like I'm pretty cautious right off the bat. If I don't know you, immediately, I feel like I have a really good just internal alarm.
Yeah, that's a real thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, it is. Because I won't
100%.
even, in my brain, I'll think, there's nothing wrong with that, but something like doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
Like it's just a feeling, like a primal feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I would say I'm pretty cautious. And I don't try to be polite. I make sure that like there was one place we were going during the trip and I was with girls. But then these 2 guys got invited and I didn't like one of the guys. I thought he was creepy and he was older. He was like 28.
Just because of the vibe that you were picking up on.
He was like 28, and I genuinely don't think he was threatening. Like, he was pretty well known and stuff. He's got like an online presence and everything, but I just didn't like him. And I thought he was creepy, and I thought he was touchy.
Mm-hmm.
And
what do you mean touching?
He just was.
He was touching her.
He didn't.
Yeah, how
he
so?
didn't know me, and he'd just walk up and be like, "Hey," and start massaging my shoulders. And I'd tense up and be like, "What are you doing?"
So what do you think moments like that are? What do you think that is? Because I'll tell you from my perspective as your father, what I see that is as I see it as a test.
Moments like trying to touch your shoulders and stuff.
Yeah,
seeing if you're okay with it.
Yeah, are you going to speak up?
Yeah,
are you going to tell me not to do that? Let me put this to the test here. Let's see how vulnerable this girl is.
Because I like reacted not favorably, and then he walked right over like 5 feet, started doing it to another girl and another girl, and it's like just like hey, what's up? Hey, what's up with you? And then if they were like thought it was okay, you just hang out with them.
Yep.
And so he got invited in the same Uber, and like I didn't get a threatening vibe from him, but I just really didn't like him. I thought he was creepy, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna get a different Uber. I waited until another group of people I knew and I trusted were going, and I didn't get there till like an hour later, but I was fine with that. I was like, I didn't want to share an Uber with him.
Yeah, better safe than sorry.
Yeah. And so I wasn't gonna be polite in that situation. I tried really hard just to, cause yeah, better safe than sorry. Like why?
Yeah.
Why risk anything if you have just kind of a weird feeling about it? So I think I'm pretty good about stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think so.
I think anyone can fall victim to it. Like even, you know, if it's somebody who's young and super attractive and like very well spoken, very articulate, and they've got a story, a backstory, why they're there, why are you there, where are you going? It is so much better to just not engage.
These are really interesting interactions, though, because again, from a guy's standpoint, then I think it becomes like, well, how am I supposed to approach a female
not at an
I'm
airport.
No. Yeah, it's a very, you have to tread lightly. You have to be very delicate, and yeah, I think from your standpoint, again, there's a vulnerability with being a female. It is so important to be at least have a certain degree of skepticism when it comes to males that are approaching you.
Well, I think that's something too you can kind of look out for as a girl. If a guy is, I feel like men, if you have the best of intentions, you should understand too, if a girl doesn't know you, she should be skeptical of you.
Yes.
And don't take that as like, oh, you're super rude. Like that's just, we have to be like that. We have to be cautious and look out for ourselves and for other girls and stuff too. So if a girl's ever like come up and like get away or something from that, like she's not trying to be rude. She's genuinely just like, same thing, being cautious.
Yeah.
And I think guys should know that, trying to go into an interaction with a girl and tread lightly. You know, don't be pushy. Don't get in a girl's space.
Yeah.
If you don't ever do that. And that's one of the things that when I was backing up and this guy kept getting in my space, I was like, there's something wrong with you. Because I don't think a normal guy would do that. You know, like you should be treading lightly.
Right. Well, he wasn't a normal guy, but yeah, I think it's such a cautionary tale for, I mean, university is just starting. A lot of people that we know, a lot of family members are going off to university, and they're going to be traveling, and they're going to be traveling over the Thanksgiving weekend. They're going to be traveling for Christmas, and young girls primarily, but young men as well, need to be aware that these things do happen, and they happen by the thousands. I mean, 36.2 million cases of child exploitation last year, which is double what it was just 4 years ago. Yeah, like over the last 4 years.
That's a crazy number.
Yeah, 36.2 million per year in 1 year in 2023. And that is double what it was in 2019. So over the last 4 years, the cases have literally doubled. And I think that's a whole bigger conversation, but it's something that we need to be hyper aware of. And it's something that we need to talk to children about, grandchildren about, teenagers, and young adults, women that are 20s, 30s. These people can be victims too. And you need to be aware that they could be hanging out at hotel bars, just anywhere looking for someone who's alone.
Yeah. It's just crazy.
I
don't know how to handle this. Like, I literally don't even know what advice to give you because
you just have to be with people all the time. You have to travel in groups. You have to travel with people that are responsible.
Yeah, no, I'm
not girls that are going to be sloshy.
Completely proud of the way that you handled it. I'm glad that you had this vigilance, like I said, this hyper awareness. But yet at the same time, it's a fine line. You can't be like crazy paranoid at the same time, which is why I'm asking you how you handle these types of situations, because you're a pretty girl. You're a young, pretty girl. You're going to get a lot of attention from a lot of guys. And I don't know what to do with that as your father. I don't know how to provide you with the proper guidance. You should be wary. You should be skeptical. But at the same time, don't be paranoid.
Yeah.
Is all I can say.
But I feel like you have to be a little paranoid.
I was very aware the rest of the trip, but I wasn't like, I'm not going anywhere.
Did you feel any fear?
Fear?
Yeah. Were you afraid?
I was highly alarmed. I'd say that. I wasn't scared, but I was highly alarmed. Okay, I don't know. The first night, I guess I was a little shaken up. I was kind of freaked out. But then the rest of the trip, I was okay. Like I was being aware, but I was still like going out and just like having fun and being, just enjoying the rest of the trip. Mm-hmm. But I was pretty alarmed because it was just discouraging. Like the first thing after showing up, I was like, are you kidding me? I just got here. Yeah. And the one trip where I'm actually alone, because I'll go places with you, but I'll step away for a second where I could look alone. This time I was genuinely alone. I was by myself, which I think is why he was like pacing around to see if I was alone or with people. But I was just like, are you kidding me? The first time I was like, is the whole trip gonna be like this? Like, I don't understand why immediately after I got there, that part was discouraging. So,
well, I'm sorry that's the case.
Yeah.
Did you have fun overall though?
I did have fun. The rest of the trip, I had fun.
Do you feel like it was a big learning experience being out there? Yeah. I mean, 1,500 miles away from your family, being by yourself. Were there a lot of lessons that were learned?
Yeah.
What?
It was an interesting one because I felt like, so I was going to a conference we've gone to. This is my third year going to this conference. And because I'm 18 now, and I was with a different group of people this time, mm-hmm. and the conference was a little different this year. It was kind of lackluster. So I feel like a lot of the people there just wanted other ways to have fun. And you're in downtown Dallas and everything, and I'm 18 now. So everyone's like, oh, you're coming with us. We're going to go here and here. And we were all sharing Ubers. And so if we went somewhere, I was stuck there until they left. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why I was texting Mom the whole time. And she was like, oh, you're getting your first taste of what college life is like, because everyone was a little rowdy, to be honest. They were, it was a lot of just like, they wanted to just party the whole time. And I was kind of being the mom of the group. The
18-year-old is babysitting everybody.
Yeah. Well, I got confirmation. I had people like writing me being like, yeah, Nevaeh's babysitting everyone. Nevaeh's having a Shirley Temple right now. Like
literally a Shirley Temple.
It was a club soda.
Okay.
Did it have a cherry
I heard
in
it had a cherry in it and it looked like a Shirley Temple.
Well, I was just trying to make sure everyone was.
I mean, the reality is like you could have drank, and it's funny because like our manager was like, it's okay if you have one drink, like that's fine. And then she's like, and then Nevaeh was like, no, I'm not drinking. And I'm like, that is the right answer. She's like, because it was not okay if she had a drink, but I was like trying to see if she would.
I felt like she was testing me.
She was testing
slightly because two of the girls I was with, they wanted to go somewhere and I couldn't get in. And they were like, oh, you look like this girl, use your passport. And Channing was the girl. She was like, oh yeah, like I won't tell you should, but you can. And then she looked at me and then
you're not very convincing.
And she texted me later. She's like, where are you guys? I was like, and it was a different place. We ended up doing something else and it was fine. She was like, that was the right choice. That's what you were supposed to do. I was like,
listen, I want to take a quick second to remind you guys about a new movie that's coming out in theaters called God's Not Dead, In God We Trust. We've been telling you about this film for a couple of weeks now. And in fact, last week, we had the opportunity to speak with two of the stars from the movie, Scott Baio and David A.R. White.
Yeah, God's Not Dead, In God We Trust is the story of a small-town pastor pushed into the political arena to run against a powerful regime, forcing faith and religion out of American politics.
Yeah, there really is no better time for this movie in today's divided culture. There seems to be such a yearning for strong spiritual leadership and a returning of God back to the forefront.
God's Not Dead challenges mainstream ideas in the battle for spiritual leaders, faith, and hope in America. We want to encourage you to go out and watch it with your family and friends.
We just had a family movie night where we watched an early screening of the film, and the message is such an important one given the current time and the political climate that we currently find ourselves in.
Yeah, our family has really enjoyed the entire God's Not Dead series, and this one definitely did not disappoint. We highly recommend you go see it. Don't miss God's Not Dead, In God We Trust, a Pinnacle Peak production in theaters September 12th.
I feel like you weren't doing the right thing because you felt as though you were being watched.
Yeah.
Or babysat. I feel like
I was.
Yeah, like even some of the younger guys like wrote me afterwards and were like, wow, she has a really good head on her shoulders. Right. She's really smart. I
will say that you leaving was incredibly reassuring, especially like hearing, like Mom said, from other people who were like, wow, sharp girl, smart girl, has her head screwed on right. And she's responsible. So that makes me feel good as your father, us as your parents.
Yeah.
For sure.
Going forward and stuff like that. And I think even with that interaction, like, I think you learned, and I learned, like, if ever put in that position, not that I will be because I'm 40. I'm not really their demographic.
Hey, there's a market out there for 41-year-old moms.
Yeah, I mean, okay, my time's probably passed, but at the same time, like, when put in an uncomfortable situation, like, I have a hard time with politeness, and
it's hard.
It is hard
in the moment,
and it's so much better to be loud and obnoxious and just the worst victim ever, to where people want to walk away. You want to cause a scene. It's like why you teach small children to yell like stranger, because then the person backs away and gets out of there.
That kindness, that desire to please and not be rude is what it is that's being exploited. That's they're coming up to you knowing full well that you've spent your entire 18 years on this planet being taught to be nice, be friendly, be cordial. Don't speak up when you're uncomfortable. That's a problem that a lot of people have. Mom has that problem big time. I do not suffer from that affliction. I have absolutely zero reluctance in telling. I mean, you guys have seen it. I don't care. But I feel like it's
something we need to teach our girls.
Yeah,
our girls are so often taught to be meek and mild and polite. And
it's like be friendly and bubbly towards everyone. And the guys, they're trying not to freak you out. Obviously, they're trying to get you to want to talk to them. So it's hard. You're trying not to be. No, like the creepy ones.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
They're trying not to freak you out.
Right. They're walking a
so they say nice things and everything to where you feel like, oh, what if he isn't creepy or something? Like, I feel like I have to be polite. And you're like, I can't respond rude when he's being totally fine, but I feel uncomfortable still. And then you're just kind of uncomfortably like answering questions. And it's hard to do it was weird. It was hard to do in the moment.
It's predatory behavior.
Yeah.
That's how it goes.
We need to teach girls to be loud and obnoxious in those situations.
Yeah.
Like say no really loud and back up.
Or just be really, really blunt. Like I told you,
get the people's attention around you.
You don't have to answer anyone's questions.
Yeah.
Especially some creepy dude or somebody that you were picking up on those vibes, like you mentioned, of that, he's acting in a way that's making me really uncomfortable. You don't have to say anything.
In the moment, I was trying to say things that would like trick them. I don't know. Which probably wasn't, I don't know, it probably wasn't the best tactic. But I feel like, but in the moment I was like, because he was asking me where I was staying. And this kickoff party for the conference is literally directly next to where I was staying. So I was like, he's going to know I'm staying there. And so in my brain, in the moment, I was like, I have to tell him I'm staying somewhere else.
So incredibly important to constantly be aware of your surroundings, right? Head on a swivel. Like we've talked about these types of things before. But it's so important, especially when you're out and about away from home, to always be monitoring who's around, who's laying eyes on you, who's outside as you walk out, I told you before you left, right? You have any drinks, cover your drink. There's a lot to be aware of.
I covered my Shirley Temple.
No, it's really important.
No one's taking my marriage.
These things happen. The time that I was in law enforcement, you know how many like cold rape calls I responded to over the years? Countless numbers.
I just saw a video like a week ago where this girl, she was at a party and she was going around and having someone film her. She was dropping gummy worms, which are way bigger than what you drop in some girl's drink or something like that. But she was dropping gummy worms in all her friends' drinks and filming how they didn't notice just to show how easy it was.
It is.
So she'd like walk by or do it. She'd like give him a hug and do it. And she just did that for like a half an hour and she got gummy worms in like everyone's drink. But I saw that and then I was kind of, because at these events, like conferences and stuff, everyone knows each other. So you're like really close quarters and like giving, and like, oh, hi, good to see you. And just like hugs and you're distracted a lot. So I was really being cautious of like make sure to cover my drink.
Yeah.
Because also at the event, you're way outnumbered as a girl. It's probably like 20, 80, like heavily just men.
Yeah, it can happen really quickly. And you never want someone else to hand you a drink. That's what happened to me in college. Because I was roofing in college at a frat party. And my friend and I both were. And luckily we were there with our cheer team. And people saw what was going on because we were handed jungle juice when we entered the party from the people putting on the party from like, I think it was Sigma Nu. They handed us drinks. And then we were like, oh, thanks. We just went off. And then I just remember feeling, I don't really remember much, honestly. Like, everyone thought that we were really, really drunk. But then there were enough girls there going, they didn't drink anything. Like, they only had like a couple sips of this disgusting Kool-Aid concoction. And then they ended up getting us home. But like, I don't remember anything for like that entire night. And they were like, oh yeah, you were like dancing and you were all over. So I'm like, zero memory. And we were clearly roofied. Like I woke up on my apartment floor, like in the entryway of my apartment floor. Just like what happened with like the world's worst headache, and I hadn't drank.
Yeah.
And no recollection of like 12 hours before.
No, again, it's a real thing. I'm not trying to scare the crap out of you by any means. I want you to have fun. I want you to have experiences and all that.
But yeah, you have to just be super aware and just know that there are bad people out there. I think it's really difficult for when you're not a bad person, when you would never do something to harm another human being, you can't imagine that someone else has that mindset.
Yep.
And that's how another way of becoming a victim, because you're like, oh, like, no, people don't do that to other people.
Yeah. It's like the flood of comments that we've been getting from people lately online. It's the same thing. I just, one person refused to acknowledge that there were evil acts that occur in the world, that evil isn't a thing. Evil doesn't exist. This is somebody who clearly has been
like, it's a social construct that some things are bad.
Yeah. Oh. Very, very clearly been very blessed. Again, I probably err on the complete opposite side of the spectrum of this because of my work history.
Well, you've witnessed stuff that other people haven't witnessed.
You have to at the very least just be mindful of it. Again, I'm not trying to tell anybody to be paranoid. Do not be, but you should be aware of the fact that, hey, at any given time, there are people who want to do harmful things to you, especially in a metropolitan area. It's part of the reason we live where we live. But to be confronted with that reality makes some people so uncomfortable. Like, oh no, it's okay. I'm not going to view things like that. Okay. But you make yourself very, very vulnerable to being targeted by those very people that I'm referring to. So,
yeah. I mean, in a way, I'm kind of glad you had the interaction, because now you know that it's there, that it's real, and I think that it's important for parents to have their kids watch the corny movie that is Taken. I think that it's an important message, because when something like that happens, like, it's still in the back of your head of like, I saw that movie and I saw how horrible that was for that girl. Or like, I made you watch Broke Down Palace before you left.
Which one is that?
Broke Down Palace is Claire Danes, and it's where they travel. They lie to their parents. They're supposed to be in Hawaii, and they lie to their parents, and they go to Thailand, and they meet a really attractive Australian man. And he's a drug trafficker. And he convinces one of the girls to carry something in their backpack, because you're way less likely.
And she had no knowledge of what it was.
He had whined and no knowledge of what it was. And he had whined and dined her, and I love you, and imagine we're going to get married, and I want you to go to Hong Kong with me. Like, good looking Australian guy who's just another tourist, right? So she carries this bag for him, and unfortunately it's filled with heroin, and both girls get thrown into a prison for life in Thailand. And there's nothing that the U.S. government can do to...
Is that a true story?
It's based on true events. I think that it was like in Thailand, there's like 200 and some American girls that have been arrested for drug trafficking, basically from drug traffickers that are very attractive, or they use very attractive coyotes to...
So in prison for the rest of their life for being naive.
For falling for some guy and making a stupid decision.
Happens so easily.
Yep. And so I made her watch that too, because it's like, I don't care if it's like cliche to make your children watch these movies. When faced with the situation, it might jog something in their mind to go, maybe don't carry something for somebody. Right. Maybe don't, just be aware.
Yeah.
So
coming away, now that you're back home, how are you feeling being away from all the action and excitement and back to the boredom and quiet of North Idaho? I'm
not going to lie, because I had a 3-hour drive from the airport. I was super tired, but I'm not going to lie. As soon as I got in my car, I was like, oh, thank God. I was so happy just to be at Spokane. I was like, it was enough action for a couple days.
You going to do more traveling though, you think?
Yeah. I mean, give me like a little while first though. It's just like, it was a lot in a few days.
But it was like your first adult environment and interactions and stuff. Was it what you expected? Was it fun?
It was fun.
Was it stressful? Did it have moments of stress too?
I wasn't stressed. I had more fun when I would like pick a spot, and because the whole thing, all the like there would be little conference parties, they were all at like bars and stuff. Right. That's not my scene. And I'm 18. Yeah. So I would find like a couple people I wanted to hang out with or that I knew, and they were also just like not drinking or anything like that. We stood at a table and we were having a great time. We were just hanging out over there and like listening to music. We were talking about like conspiracies. We started this whole talk about, we had this hypothetical of like if one of us ran for president and the others were administration members. We were all like debating, like, I don't know. We were talking politics, but it was fun. No, we were having a good time.
I like it. That's
yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess you'll have new experiences once you are 21, and then people are going to want you to go out to the bars and stuff with them. And that's going to be like a whole new experience of.
I'm telling you, I don't think that would be fun for me.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't enjoy that environment.
You are our child.
Yeah, I get
sure.
so burnt out. And
Yeah, that's not where Maya and I have ever
It
enjoyed
sounds
ourselves.
fun until you're there, and then it's not that much fun.
It's not.
It's like a dance club. A dance club sounds like a good idea until you're there, and it's gross and it's loud and everyone's handsy
Everyone's
and it's
sweating on each
crowded
other.
and you can't get a drink. Like it's just horrible.
There was one guy in the kind of group I was with that came up to me. He went, "Are you having fun?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine." He was
This
like,
is what I look like when I have fun.
he was like, "You don't seem like you're having fun." He was like, we'll buy you. And they were trying to buy me shots. And I was like, I don't want those.
Yeah,
I
that's how
did
you
not.
have fun.
Yeah. He was like, "Oh no, you didn't have fun." Blah, blah. They were trying to
I didn't know
she's not having fun.
Yeah.
I was not. That's what it was. They were like, "We bought you tequila shots." I was like, "No, thank you."
They tried telling her that if you drink tequila, you won't throw up. Or if you drink other stuff, but then you follow it with tequila, that will make you not puke.
Science.
That's what they were doing.
I
They
was
were
like,
drink,
that's bad advice.
drinking like vodka, and then they top it off with tequila and club soda, and they're like, "Then you don't get sick." I was just like, I don't even care. I did not touch. I was like, I don't want any of that.
Never take shots. Never. I'm going to say this as a parent who got alcohol poisoning on my
And a heavy
21st
drinker.
birthday. No, I'm not a heavy drinker. I've only taken shots one time. It was my 21st birthday. I ended up with alcohol poisoning. I vomited for 3.5 days. Like I literally almost died after my 21st birthday. My mom was just so mad. And because I wasn't a drinker and I wasn't a partier, but I allowed people to talk me into doing something stupid. And then, like when in Rome kind of thing. Never take shots. Just don't. Like if you want to have like a drink or a cocktail or a glass of wine or something once you're 21, enjoy it. Like, be social, but don't down shots are for getting drunk. And your goal should never be to get drunk.
I already
Don't
know
get
I'd
drunk.
be a sipper. Like I'm gonna order this and have it for an hour, just like
Yeah. With like a plate of fries.
No, getting drunk is overrated.
Don't
It really is.
never drink to get drunk because all you're going to get is sick.
I'm too scared of getting sick. I'm too scared of throwing up. I have a phobia around throwing up to ever drink heavily. So I think I'm okay.
Yeah. Shots are for getting. I don't understand shots.
All right, let's wrap this one up a little
right.
early. Sound
Yeah.
good? Whose tummy's gurgling? Is that me?
I think so.
I can't tell with the headphones. Somebody's hungry.
It's got to be you. It's lunchtime.
Okay. Let's wrap this one up. I'm glad you had
Yeah,
fun on your
and we're
trip.
glad you're
Nevaeh.
back.
Glad you're back. Glad you made it home safely. I was like, see, you didn't die.
Now
Look.
we need to get you moved into the apartment. It's
I know.
time.
That's what I'm about to work on.
Yeah. So, just big warning, I guess.
Yeah, it's just something
To everybody out there.
kind of a cautionary tale that ended fine. I do wish that you had actually alerted police and let them know what was going on.
Yeah.
Like that's
in
the
hindsight,
only. Yeah.
I probably should have.
You should have.
My brain didn't go there, but I probably should have.
Yeah. And then, I mean, just a cautionary tale for anyone that has young family members of like, hey, be aware, this happens here in America. It happens at airports. Let's go feed your dad.
I heard it on the
Gurgle,
headphones.
gurgle,
I heard
yeah.
Mike's
Too.
catching it up.
All right. Yeah. Just be aware, regardless of your age, regardless of your gender, be careful out there. Be aware of the fact that there are people out there that want to do bad things. Yeah. Well, ended on that note.
So for more uplifting content, make sure you like and subscribe, follow along.
Oh, that's why you're here. Like, comment, subscribe, notification bell. You guys know how it goes. We appreciate it.
Check out Nevaeh's channel, Nevaeh Souza on YouTube.
Thank you.
We got new
My
videos
plug.
coming.
Okay. New Good Simple Living on Saturday. We'll be back here next week. Love and appreciate you guys. See you then.